on the overview of digital transformation in the pharmaceutical industry. The digitalization of control processes plays critical roles in the profitability of the pharma business and improves the public health infrastructure. The advances in the digital technology accelerates the drug discovery, streamlines clinical trials, eases up pharmaceutical manufacturing with access to healthcare infrastructure, information, and pharma companies. The session which we are going to have now will discuss the new age digital experience and technology covering artificial intelligence, data and analytics, flexible production, precision medicine, additive manufacturing, blockchain, extended reality, and real-world data. The session is being moderated by Ms. Urvashi Prasad, Director, Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office, Niti Aayog. Ladies and gentlemen, may I please request all of you to kindly welcome Ms. Urvashi Prasad up on the stage. We would also like to welcome our esteemed panelists for this panel discussion. We have two panelists who are joining us virtually. Mr. Mukesh Rathi, Global CIO and CDP, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, and Mr. Atanu Roy, Group CIO, Biocon Group, who would also be joining us virtually. I would now like to invite up on stage Dr. Navneet Singh Tewatia, Associate Secretary General, IPA. Please give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Ms. Gauri Pathak, Country Service Line Leader, Healthcare IPSOS, my apologies. And last but definitely not the least, Ms. Shveta Arora, Senior Vice President, Global Head of Industry Solutions and Services, Infosys Limited. We have the power of women in this session, and I hope this session would also turn out to be enlightening. Ladies and gentlemen, now I hand over the floor to the moderator of the session.
Yeah, thank you very much, and welcome everybody for this session. It's a post-lunch session, so we'll try to keep it interactive and light as much as possible. So I think, in this session, the topic that we've been given is to look at digital transformation in the pharmaceutical industry. So we'll be looking at different dimensions of that. I think it's very clear that, and by now at this point, you would have had other sessions also, that digital is obviously a very important enabler in the entire healthcare space. And also, more specifically now that we'll be talking about the pharma space. In terms of bringing about efficiency, in terms of bringing about customer centricity, and also innovation. So I think we're going to touch upon all these different aspects in terms of how digital is really transforming the landscape. And we have a very eminent panel to discuss this with us. We have a short panel, so we'll request everyone to keep their comments to 3 to 4 minutes, so we also have some time for discussion. So I'll begin with Mr. Mukesh Rathi. And my question to you is how, in your experience, you're seeing digital transformation really change the patient experience in particular, because patient centricity, patient satisfaction, these are very important goals for the pharma sector. So in your view, how you are seeing the transformation happening from a digital lens? Request your thoughts on that, please. Mr. Rathi.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity. Very happy to be connected on this platform with all the audience, and very happy to join the esteemed panel of speakers to have this conversation. When we look at the patient journey, I think one big shift which the whole industry is seeing, number one, is thinking from overall illness to wellness. I think that is one big shift all of us have seen. And keeping that in view, the roles pharmaceutical companies or all healthcare companies are wanting to play is to how to be connected with the consumers. And I'm not using the word patient on purpose. How to be connected with the consumers so that we are with them through the good health cycle. Yeah. And in case of those in good health, how do you allow them to maintain good health and remain like that? And those who have certain conditions, how do you work with them in the journey from illness to better health maintenance, and then continue to keep good health? I think that's one big paradigm shift, and that's one shift all of us are seeing. Now, given that context, I think the another context which we are seeing, which is purely from a digital perspective, is there is lot of devices. Most of us all consumer devices. It began with mobile phones, etc., but now the whole world of wearables has drastically shifted the way consumer data, health data, all of that is starting to aggregate. Yeah, so that's the second trend. The third trend is on overall health record. Patient health record is getting digitized in many different forms, while we are yet to see as a country one standard which will allow to sort of bring all of this together. But still, it is getting picked up in different pockets, either through diagnostics or in hospitals, or in interaction with doctors in polyclinics, etc. But there is different parts of patient health record which is getting collected in different parts of the ecosystem today. I am hoping that sooner or later we will see a standardization coming in, and something like the Digi Health Locker would become omnipresent, wherein all of this data comes together for a patient, for a consumer, and with his consent has the ability to truly use it to provide personalized service or personalized health recommendation for himself. So that's sort of the overall spectrum and trend. Now, what's happening from a digital intervention or a transformation perspective is, number one, organizations like us, like pharmaceutical companies, are wanting to play an active role in the whole journey, in the whole illness to wellness journey. So there's enough and more we are trying to do as companies to look at the whole therapeutic or the disease life cycle and be with the patient, not just in the episode, but in the whole life cycle. And this is coming together in the form of either health platforms, in the form of digital therapeutics, in the form of various other aids, which one could provide to patients to be successful in the whole journey. Second, there are a lot of innovation, lot of startups are showing up in various places. I mean, multiple examples, but even say from a provider perspective, now there's an app which essentially aggregates demand from, say, mid-tier towns for high-end surgeries, so that the surgeons could actually travel to these mid-tier towns and provide that service, which was always a challenge for mid-tier small towns actually to go to a bigger city for a specific intervention, etc. What one is looking. So there's a lot of intervention there. There's a lot of intervention on ongoing good health. Again, multitude of apps. I'm sure each one of us is using one of them in some form or the other. So that's the whole spectrum we are talking about. Big transformation ahead of us. I think the big challenge is the standardization. And I'm hoping to see in some form it should come together, ensuring that there is enough data privacy, and with consent, every consumer or patient is able to bring this together to get the best personalized service for himself.
Thank you for those very insightful comments. And I'll now move on to Dr. Navneet and request your thoughts on innovation in the digital healthcare space, and how do you see that panning out, and what can we do better from a regulatory perspective, policy perspective, to provide a better enabling environment for innovation in the digital healthcare space? So request your thoughts on that.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I represent Indian Pharmaceuticals Alliance, which is a consortium of Indian research-based pharmaceutical companies. We have 24 big pharma companies from India in our alliance. And today I'm here representing the organization. Thank you very much for inviting. Digital aspect connecting with healthcare and how innovations can help You know, I'll go a little backwards, not only healthcare, but in the pharmaceutical sector. Pharmaceutical sector is highly regulated, right from the early discovery to the development to manufacturing, sales and distribution, dispensing. Every aspect is highly regulated. And within this regulation, complying to the regulation, it adds to the compliance burden. We talk about ease of doing business, but when companies and all the stakeholders who have to comply, it adds to lots of burden. So bringing digital innovation can really help easing out those creases, reducing the compliance burden right from the discovery stage. It can help, digital innovation can help the clinical development process be shortened, revolutionized, fast-tracked. When it reaches to the regulatory stage, that's where the digital can really help. We have a Sugam portal in our country. At the national level, if it can be integrated, and all the submissions, tracking of the submissions, and the approvals, the authorization, if can be given digitally and which are valid, I think that will go a long way in improving our overall healthcare, especially in terms of the health commodities, pharmaceuticals. Digital will also help a lot in the personalized medicine space. So yesterday I was reading about a portal, the Navya portal in Tamil Nadu. It has helped patients in big way, the cancer patients, where how AI is being used for bringing better patient outcomes, giving the better results using the artificial intelligence. In big country like India, supply chain is a very big issue. So digital innovation can really de-risk the supply chain. It can make the stock availability available to the policymakers and all those who need it in a real-time basis. So digital has a big role to play. Last aspect, our human resource. We are one of the largest producer of generic medicines, but going forward, as we move into the innovation space, we will need lots of skilling, reskilling, upskilling, and there the digital can play a big role in terms of online education to our professionals. So with these words, I think I would say the dots connecting healthcare with all the other aspects in the ecosystem, digital innovation has a long way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, and you touched upon several important points there. We'll go deeper into some of them. My next question is for Mr. Roy, who's joining us virtually. Mr. Roy, how do you see the whole issue of data integrity and data privacy in relation to this whole digital space? Because it's obviously very important to have data sharing, and also it's an issue in terms of sharing between pharma companies, also regulatory agencies. So how do you see this whole issue of data integrity and privacy in this context?
So you have raised a very important point, and I would cover it in 2-3 aspects. One is that actually digital transformation and digitization of the various processes and systems are helping in data integrity. So in the quality space or in the manufacturing space, by having convergence of architecture and connecting various systems, that is helping in data integrity, which was earlier a big problem for many pharma companies. And companies who have embarked on integrated systems connecting data from the source have to a large extent addressed the data integrity problem. However, as we do Industry 4.0 and as we integrate level 2 systems with level 3 systems and level 4 systems and create a connected factory, smart factories, and the connected labs and the labs of the future, one of the challenges which happens is, which was not the risk earlier, is if there is a cyber attack, then it is very easy to it affects many of the systems and it stops operations. Second thing is intellectual property and data leakage can also be, it is more vulnerable to that. Earlier, when it was disconnected systems, there was less chance of data leakage happening. And now with connected systems, it increases. So how do you create the cyber security infrastructure and how you do micro segmentation of the entire ecosystem to prevent data thefts and data leakage and protecting your intellectual property while you collaborate with various business partners is an important part of the architecture which needs to be thought about. So just to summarize, I would say that with digitization, data integrity has improved significantly. I have seen in the last 10 years, the state of data integrity, which was there in the most of the pharmaceutical companies in India, compared now with significant digitization, which has happened in the QC labs and manufacturing, data integrity has improved many notches higher, which is the good thing. But with Industry 4.0 and connected factory and smart factory, which are currently, most of the companies have embarked on that journey, how to protect data leakage and intellectual property and prevent cyber attacks. There is a lot of thinking which needs to be done on that.
Thank you. Thank you. My next question is for Ms. Gauri Pathak. And my question is really, and Dr. Navneet also touched upon this, capacity building. Given this whole digital transformation, how do we really build capacity of different stakeholders, whether it's in pharma, whether it's, it's the doctors, the patients? How do we build capacity and what shifts, do you see happening or do you think we need to make to do this better?
I think we need to first understand how the lives of doctors are changing because of the digital transformation. Because that has a direct impact on the strategies that pharma companies will make. As we rightly recognized earlier, the Indian pharma market is a branded generics market, which means for every molecule, there are at least 100 brands which are present. In the traditional model, pharma companies promoted these brands to doctors through the medical representative. Now the doctor's life is changing. I mean, personally, when I saw a doctor prior to the pandemic, I would go sit there, chit chat. He typically knew about my profession, my family. He'll ask me questions about it. And we had a very healthy discussion at the end of it. He'll say, lose weight, don't take so much stress and all that. Today I go and meet a doctor, it's an altogether different scenario, right? A recent consultation I had, he's sitting in a cabinet which is enclosed. And I felt as if I'm answering a questionnaire by him because he has to punch in that data on his software. It's very important. All the big data analytics that we are talking about, essentially the medical practitioner is punching that data through information received by from the patient. So he's trying to do his best. He's also doing virtual consultations with patients and using his time for maximizing the patient load that he sees. So his life is different. Now in the whole gamut, a pharma company now has to build capacities to promote brands to these doctors, right? And that is not easy because digital transformation does not necessarily translate to the doctor having more time at hand. In fact, in certain cases, it might be the opposite because he is using that free time to do more patient consultations. So in terms of building capacities, most pharma companies are embracing an omni-channel strategy. They cannot solely rely on the rep to transform information, clinical evidence, brand-related data to the doctor. So they are looking at innovative ways of using digital technology to reach the doctor and convey their message.
Thank you. And my next question is to Ms. Shveta Arora.
And the question is, what do you think are some of the critical factors for developing sustainable digital health models, and where do you see the role of public-private partnerships in these models?
So, for the success of any digital health would be if you can disrupt, I really call the three vertices of the golden triangle of healthcare: access, cost, and quality. It's all about disrupting that and making an impact. I think if I look at the factors that are very critical for a digital health model, I think a lot of it has been talked, I think, in the previous sections. But if I summarize, it's really about creating one networked ecosystem, right? Pharmaceutical industry talks about molecule to market, but digital transformation is making this literally from molecule to patient. How do we ensure that there is one connected ecosystem with interoperability, right? That's, I think, it's preaching to the choir. Everybody's talked about it. And that is second factor is the data standards. We adopt data standards that get followed by all the participants. Third factor is, which is where a lot of the problem also starts, is regulatory. The nature of digital innovation globally has been that regulation is, digital innovation has been that regulation is always catching up, right? And that's how it is. It's the speed at which this innovation works, and that results in a lot of misuse of data that happens, whether that is privacy laws or telemedicine laws. And worst is that a lot of rip and replace happens. Entities invest and then suddenly a regulation changes and you're having to rip and replace. So I think we have an opportunity, being a laggard sometimes is an opportunity to learn. So how do we bridge this gap? If not eliminate totally. I don't think we can ever eliminate it. Regulation will take time to catch up, but we ought to reduce this, this gap. And I think from our experience of working with clients in Infosys, change management is very critical. Extremely critical. There's lots being talked about how telemedicine got adopted through the pandemic. Yes, pandemic was absolutely a catalyst. What could have taken us 10 years to change behaviors happened in just about a year because of the dire circumstances. It's an opportunity, but let's not fool ourselves that it'll be long lasting. I think in one of the earlier panels, we saw a user experience journey of a patient. The experience still is very clunky in most of the solutions out there. I won't be surprised if, how many of you raise your hands, you consulted a doctor during the pandemic over WhatsApp and got another, somebody else's prescription forwarded to you. So of course, I'm taking a very rudimentary example. But we have to. We've talked about patient, and I'm glad you mentioned, Gauri, about doctor's experience, right? You can put this very beautiful infrastructure, but if we are not focusing on that experience design, getting into the life of that doctor, none of these systems will get adopted. See, the entire burden of the data that you're gathering through this connected ecosystem falls on the patient providing you the data, the clinicians providing you the data, the doctors putting it. If you're not making it easy for them to put that data, these systems will never take shape, right? EHRs, EMRs have been around for so many times, for so many years in other countries, but never got adopted. But I know we are now doing quite a pilots as to how do we make that easy, right? At the point of entry of a doctor when he's inputting the information, can we use speech-to-text, speech-to-text APIs to make it easier? Can we embed clinical decision support systems? So there's a lot being done, but the focus has to be that user in the whole system. And last but not the least is an ecosystem of local innovation, and which is to your next question here. I think local innovation ecosystem extremely important. I think we know that our culture or our cost structures, our healthcare system, is very difficult to translate something from the outside. It has to be groomed from within. So that melting pot of local innovation ecosystem is very important. So that brings me to your next question about what can public-private partnership do in this space. I am actually very gung-ho on the whole Digital India blueprint, starting with the public investment that's happening in, let's say, through the BharatNet, on laying that fiber infrastructure. Fantastic blueprints on building the India stack, on over which we are laying the national health stack. It's a very innovative and a very new concept where the government is literally creating the what we call as the digital plumbing, the whole a set of APIs that are really the foundation that's being built. But what that national health stack is doing, right, is that it is creating a sandbox for innovation, right? Very easy access to data. Private sector will be able to innovate a lot faster on our solutions for this market, for our market. And those that become successful, you have the infrastructure to translate that into large-scale commercialization. It's a phenomenal blueprint. It's yielded us results. I don't know if some of you follow fintech would know India Stack, the UPI innovation that has happened. Most of you must be reading about this whole open digital commerce network that we've started. I think the national health stack has that same capacity. So as a technologist, I get very excited about what that potential that holds, right? Another layer of public-private partnerships, which I'm not necessarily that I've seen that happening in India as yet, is if we could build a corridor or hopefully with physical proximity to something very, very similar to, let's say, what a Silicon Valley is, right? What does that make that whole innovation ecosystem sustainable with a virtuous cycle? It's coming together of your academia, some very large private sector, startups, and venture capital. All those four aspects coming together is where that entire virtuous cycle of innovation begins. In the pharma space, you have, let's say, example is the Golden Triangle in UK, the Cambridge, Oxford, and London. It hosts AstraZeneca, GSK companies. It hosts startups. The UK government provides that rich data from NHS, right? That single payer system data that comes in. And all of us have taken the Covishield jab. Right? It's Oxford and AstraZeneca where it all got done. I'd love to see some of that kind of a government stepping in and engineering such an ecosystem that creates what I call as a virtuous cycle of innovation. That's how I see this working.
Thank you. We'll now do another round of discussion with our panelists. And for this, I have a common question really for everyone. If you can just summarize or highlight for us one key challenge and one key opportunity from your perspective when we look at digital transformation in the healthcare and the pharma space. And also if there's any learning that we need to draw or any major lesson that you think we can learn from another country or maybe something that we've seen in another state in India, that would also be very helpful. So we'll begin with Mr. Rathi.
So the way I look at it is I think the challenge and the opportunity is probably similar. The challenge is that the industry is a laggard with high regulatory overhead. And over a period of time, at least when I look at pharmaceutical perspective, a lot of focus has always been around compliance. And in some form, tends to become tends to create a mindset issue whenever one thinks about transformation beyond thinking compliance, beyond thinking data integrity, etc. I mean, all of those are given and one has to cross that bridge. But ability to think beyond and shift mindset to true transformation, truly using Industry 4.0 for next level of manufacturing transformation, thinking about digital to thinking from science to say digital science, thinking from PSR meeting doctor to true omni-channel 360-degree connect. All of these are talked about, but I think there is a big gap between where we want to go versus where the industry is. And that is also the opportunity. When you have a big gap from where you are and where you want to go, there is an opportunity to leapfrog. One can learn so much from the external world right now that one does not have to follow the steps the other industry has followed, and you could leapfrog and directly go to the end state. Sort of take 5 steps instead of one together, and that is a big opportunity ahead of the healthcare industry to make this happen. Learning wise, I think the big learning is in the tech industry. I think Shveta spoke about standardization. My sense is this industry is still missing the USB. The tech industry had USB as one great example of standardization, which transformed the way data moves. I think this industry needs that USB standard, which allows data interoperability with the right level of standards, privacy, and security. And that would truly enable both transformation at patient level, doctor level, and at the industry.
Thank you. Dr. Navneet?
Yeah. So, what challenge we have, and also I was asked about quality. I would say that we have an opportunity and challenge together. Indian pharmaceutical industry, it's called pharmacy of the world because of the reason that we supply medicines to one of the to the most stringent markets, US, UK, European Union, Japan, Australia, but still there are questions on the quality. So the issue is that this system of dual quality, different quality for exports and different for domestic market, we need to, going forward, do away with it. India should become member of the PICS, which is a global consortium where there are quality standards, everyone accepts that. So we need to move up, but that's a long journey. What comes in the way is also the stringent pricing control on the medicines. So we need to be more liberal, and especially the products which are not very high priced doesn't need to be under the price control. Rather, should work on more on health financing, providing options to the patients so that they do not run out of money through out-of-pocket expenses. There are various challenges. I'll not talk about that, but opportunities. We are largely a volume-driven industry so far. Almost $50 billion industry, 25 billion exports and 25 domestic. But that's a very small proportion of the global pharmaceutical industry. If we need to move up, we need to get into the value space. And digital transformation within the pharmaceutical research, manufacturing can go a long way. We need to move up into the future technologies. For example, during the COVID time, when the people working in the plants, they were infected, the plants were shut down. The manufacturing capacity came to almost 20% of the total capacity. People working on the machines in the research labs, especially the quality control, quality assurance labs, people were not able to attend. So how can we use more of automation, digitize our operations, use virtual reality? I recently saw one of the exhibit where the plant operations can be operated using VR, where the operator functioning can be standardized so that we have a consistent quality, less chances of human error, because if you have quality health commodities, only then you can have quality healthcare products. So these are, but we have huge opportunities going forward to become maybe in the top 3 pharma markets in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gauri.
I think the opportunities are many, but if I were to prioritize them, I would say the first one would be, faster drug delivery processes. Who would have thought a few years ago that big pharma is going to collaborate with the tech companies for drug discovery, right? And now we hear it everywhere. So that is number one. Number two is, as we discussed earlier in the earlier sessions also, is faster, earlier diagnosis, which means better quality of life for patients. The other one I would say is more power to the patient. Thanks to the digital transformation, the adoption of digital health among patients is on the rise. The patient is more in control of her health, and that gives her more power. So I think these three really to me are the key opportunities. In terms of the challenges, I think data privacy will continue to be a challenge no matter how much we try to tackle it. There will be ways that will challenge us as far as data privacy is concerned. The other one is to make digital more relevant to the patient. We've seen across multiple studies that we do at IPSOS that while adoption of technology is increasing and there is excitement around it, continuous usage of technology still has a long way to go. There are many dropouts because patients don't see the relevance in the long run. So the solutions that we offer have to be relevant to the patient in the long run as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Shveta, Arora.
So I think if one is to take some examples from outside, interoperability will have its challenges. I think you talked about data standards being adopted, but I think we also have to look at how do we create the right incentives. It has to be a combination of incentives and governmental mandates to get every participant onto that ecosystem that you create, right? I'll give examples to say, despite interoperability being a desire in the US healthcare system still hasn't reached. For example, a provider sector or a hospital sharing its patient data openly on, let's say, one registry which is accessible, the electronic health records registry, which is accessible to everybody. That entity is giving up their competitive, it's competitive information. It's the entire, information about the hospital, which can then be used by anybody, right? These concerns are probably, can be seen today that despite the interoperability standards, right? US is also taking one step at a time, like a peer-to-peer interoperability or the mandate to exchange information is still not worked out, right? Because they don't want to share their member data because that's giving up their competitive advantage. So I think that has to be very well thought through as to what incentives we create for the participants and where it has to be a governmental mandate. You don't do it, you're an information blocker, and therefore it'll have consequences. So I think that's a challenge that we'll have to weave through very careful deliberations between the government and the participants. So that is a challenge. The opportunity is immense. I think the biggest opportunity for us is to really make healthcare very inclusive in this country to everybody. We've all talked about we are one of the lowest when it comes to total healthcare spends. We have the worst doctors, to patient ratios. I think digital health has the opportunity to bridge that, and the opportunities are huge. We look forward to a whole innovation ecosystem building this country to start churning out those applications, that can be then translated across. So I think that's really the biggest opportunity to make healthcare truly inclusive in this country.
Thank you. I don't know if we still have Mr. Roy with us.
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah.
Most of the panelists have covered most of it. So the way I look at it, one of the challenges, the pharma manufacturing R&D is actually very complex, and it has also a lot of regulatory things. And what was being talked about as that is one of the hurdles to the innovation, but I see also maximum opportunities coming there. For example, as we get into the value chain of more complex manufacturing processes, more sterile processes, that is where digital technologies can actually help in the manufacturing process with much more sophistication, ensure that the drug qualities are proper and the regulatory norms are being followed. We don't have to have people to oversee things. Lot amount of advanced technologies like robotics, metaverse, the remote operations of machines. If the machines are in a sterile place, operator can be sitting outside or even at home and start operating the machines. So those are the opportunities which are there in pharma manufacturing. That is extremely complex, and as pharma manufacturing, especially the many of the companies who are focused on advanced drugs, uh, the sophistication of manufacturing is increasing. Their digital technologies are going to help in the manufacturing process to ensure proper quality is produced. So I think that as an opportunity, while the challenge had also been that the complexity of manufacturing processes and regulatory norms were quite difficult.
Thank you. I think we have just a few minutes. So any quick comment or question from the audience? Any? Yeah, yes, we have one hand up there. Could someone help with a mic? And any of the organizers, if you could help with a mic in the audience? Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I'm Dr. Kavar from Key Healthcare Private Limited. My question to Mr. Roy is, what do you think, the biggest challenge in my view is the lack of digital expertise in pharma industry or the manufacturing. How we can overcome from that? Thank you so much.
Yeah, so actually, this is a very, very important point you have raised, and I think this was also covered earlier that there has to be significant amount of skill development which is required for the pharma, for digital in pharma manufacturing. I encountered that in all the companies where I have earlier worked. I think the change management process and the skill building process, all modes has to be worked out, right from the pharmaceutical colleges in their curriculum. Right from there, the digital technologies in manufacturing needs to be introduced. There are other countries, for example, in Ireland, there is a facility where Industry 4.0, the whole model is there, and it is a functioning plant owned by the, operated by the, supported by the Ireland government, where interns can come and work there, get experience. So right from the pharmaceutical graduates, it should start, and then we should have facilities like that as well. So model plant of the future, where people get experience, and also people who are working in the industries, they can come to these facilities and get experience in the multiple technologies. So the learning path for pharma manufacturing graduates and people who are working in pharma manufacturing, digital technology should be now integrated as part of their overall curriculum, not only when they are colleges, but while they are working in the industry. And the SOPs have to be also modified accordingly.
So I would also like to add a few points here. From Indian Pharmaceuticals Alliance, we are working with the Pharmacy Council of India for course upgradation. I passed out from Pharmacy College 21 years back, and today still the course is same, where it need to be fit for the purpose. So this work is happening with the PCI. Second is the Life Sciences Sector Skill Development Council. It's undertaking courses for upgradation of the skill set, especially in the people who are working in the technical space. Luckily, right now, the Secretary General of IPA is also the chairperson for the Life Sciences Skill Development Council. So we have this unique opportunity where we can club the pharmaceutical sector with these two organizations which have mandate for the skill development.
Thank you. I think we're...
One more to Dr. Navneet. So we are talking about, the digital and all, but still I believe, we are lacking in, the chain system, the channel partner, especially in the life-saving drug like insulin and all. They are not maintaining the temperature, the 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. I believe, I hope you agree with me, when it reaches to the patient, if patient will not able to take the right insulin, it will go to the hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a long way to go, and I understand the cold chain management in case of the thermosensitive products. It's very important, but it's also a matter of sensitization and awareness.
So, yeah, we've had a very rich discussion, and we'll just bring this panel to a close now. I think we've discussed many different aspects, right from regulatory policy to innovation. We've spoken about data sharing, interoperability, data privacy, capacity building. I think we've had a very important discussion on capacity building, skill development, how we need to perhaps relook at our curriculum. And then customer satisfaction, patient empowerment, patient centricity. So I think we've touched upon many different dimensions. I think as Ms. Shveta had put it, the pandemic gave a fillip to a lot of the digital transformation, but we now cannot afford to sort of sit on our laurels or just be comfortable with what we've achieved. I think both the public and private sectors need to come together so that we can keep up this momentum and continue to accelerate what we've seen in terms of digital transformation during the pandemic. So with that, we'll conclude this panel. Thank you very much to all the panelists and also to the audience. Thank you.
And thank you so much, ma'am, for conducting the session so beautifully. Yes, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this panel discussion, and we would like to commemorate the occasion and felicitate them with a small token of appreciation, for which may I please invite upon stage Mr. Vivekanand Mishra once again. I request him to kindly come up on the stage and present the mementos to our esteemed panelists. We would first like to honor Ms. Urvashi Prasad,